So today we'll be going over laser ammo still challenge and how it translates into an actual still match. So granted, unless you have a range you have access to and still challenge targets and you can set them up wherever, or you have the money to buy all the still targets for it and set up at your own home range if you got one, it gets pretty expensive. You got live ammo, and sometimes you can't always go out because it might be cold depending on where you live at. So these simulators for still challenge, specifically laser ammo, in this instance, is a handy way to practice this at home. Granted, with the screen dimensions, the target width and far apart might be slightly smaller than what is out there in real life. Even if you have a big, 60-inch projector screen that you're going off of, it's still, unless you spend the money to, get something like 72 inches and a great projector to go very wide, then, you're slightly limited, but it's still great practice to try out different ways you want to tackle the still challenge and, practice in general in dry fire. How it translates is pretty much, maybe a second or two plus or minus from real life, or from the simulator. And sometimes we all have our days where things are spot on, things are not. So it could be plus or minus two at best, from what I kind of noticed. On the example that I'm going to give, it will be accelerator range or accelerator stage at this year's Kentucky State Still Challenge Championship, which I picked this one because out of the 8 stages that were there, this was one of the ones that I got a personal best on. And before it, I had one still challenge match the month before, and pretty much the simulators from after Optics Nationals all the way to State Still Challenge in August. So it was pretty much nothing but dry fire because I don't have the steel to practice in live fire. So I just did all dry fire and one match, and was able to get a personal best on accelerator. So we'll use accelerator as an example on this, and I'll show you the 4 stages that counted at the state match, and then 4 stages in the simulator, and then compare the 2 values there. So as you saw in the data, the live one was like a 14:01, which is a personal best for that stage for me right now. And when I did the example in dry fire, it was 13:43. So, plus or minus 2 roughly. And but before, and I did that one afterwards. A lot of this data I can't really record, but did record a lot of the times when I was doing my dry fire practice during that time, as you can see, from beginning of July all the way up until before the match. And accelerator, there's mixed days, mixed times, because, well, some days I have a great day, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can hit under 12, and sometimes it's a little above that. But at the actual stage, it was under 11. So, it was pretty close for accelerator. My best time at the stage practicing before the match was 11:10. and it was just pretty much less than a second in real life. Outer Limits was another personal best for me on, let's see, on the simulator practicing it, it was 1440, my best time, which as you saw with the rest of them, I mean, some of them always plus or minus, some went up to 19, and the best one was 14. But on my best time in real life, it was 1649. And the next one that I got personal best that day was in Roundabout at 1064, which was still under a second here at 1085. So there are some translations, that it could do, depending on how good you're feeling that day. I reckon, and if everything's falling in place, unless you're after class and it always falls in place, and you don't have to worry about it. But I tend to have my off days, and it helps if you record it and you record your sessions, and just make up some spreadsheet where you can at least get your average time and even set goal time, so you can really try and push yourself while you're doing the simulator to go faster. So you can control your go fast during practice, and then just run your game during the actual match, and maybe knock out some personal best times. Includes how laser ammo's smokeless range add-on still challenge, which if you already have some other camera software that detects the laser, you can also buy this separate without smokeless range, but it also comes as a nice little option and for it to integrate with the smokeless range as well. But this concludes the how it translates from shooting a simulator into real life, which roughly maybe a second or two, depending on your day and your equipment and how everything else goes for you. But on perfect scenario, I had 2 stages that were pretty much near perfect scenario where the translation was less than a second. And I had some that was, plus or minus 2. It just varies on how much you train on this and do live fire in total to actually narrow that scope down for the 2. But on a rainy, snowy, cold day, and you can't get out to the range, and great way to practice all 8 stages, the comfort of your own home. And they also have plenty of other good simulators over at laserammo.com.